Hey guys, and welcome back for another tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this adorable fold over backpack. This backpack is perfect for school, as a purse, or as an adorable diaper bag. It measures approximately 13 inches wide and 14 inches tall when folded, and about 18 inches when unfolded. This backpack features an outside slip pocket, as well as a couple slip pockets on the inside and a zipper pocket on the inside. Now with all my tutorials, I will have all the measurements over at the blog post, which is linked below, as well as the information icon in the top right hand corner of this video. There are quite a few measurements for this backpack, so I took the liberty of creating a PDF download with all the measurements listed, as well as the hardware you will need. The PDF will just be a reference guide and not the entire tutorial, but there will be additional photos of its construction within the blog post, as well as links to any of the materials, hardware, and tools I like to use in my videos. And if you're not already, I would love it if you subscribed, hit that notification bell to be alerted of new and future tutorials, and of course, smash the like button, as the kids like to say. Okay, so let's get into the tutorial. Now, you might be a little intimidated by this project if you are somewhat new to sewing, but if you have done any of my previous zipper pouches, then you will realize that this is really just a really big zipper pouch that I turned into a backpack. So it is quite easy, but there is a lot of steps to prepare the outer panels of this gigantic zipper pouch. So that's why it can look a little intimidating, and there is a lot of steps. So these are the pieces I will be using for my outer panel. I'm going to be using a waterproof canvas and then some vinyl for the bottom, and then I'm just using a regular cotton for the inside. I did make the inside zipper pocket separately, but I do have a tutorial for step-by-step guide and the information icon, so you can learn how to do that in a better way. Otherwise, this video would have been way too long for you guys. So definitely check out that video if you want to insert your own zipper pocket on the inside. I'll also have a piece of vinyl for the front pocket, and then I made my own straps for this bag, but you can of course just take a shortcut and use some webbing, which is kind of like the dog leash material that you would find on backpacks and things at the store. So if you don't want to make strapping like I did, then of course just go buy some webbing and skip that step. It makes this backpack go way faster. I also am using some zippers and of course the hardware, which will be listed at the PDF. First, we're going to work on the little slip pockets that are on the inside of the bag. So I will be showing you how to do the other side of the lining. So I just took that piece that is my inside slip pocket piece. I folded it in half lengthways, and I'm going to sew down 3 sides to basically close it all up. I will be leaving about a 3-inch gap at some point along the way, just so that I can flip the whole thing right side out. I'll be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but when we're working with the actual bag, I usually like to hover around a 1/2 inch seam allowance, just so that I can make sure that I catch all of my materials, because, you know, not everyone is perfect and things kind of get shifted. So if you give yourself a nice big seam allowance, then you don't have to worry about that stuff. Okay, so now that we've sewn this part, as you can see, there's a little 2 or 3 inch gap there that I'm going to use. I'm just going to snip all the corners, and that's going to help to reduce the bulk in the corners. When I go to flip it, it's going to make sure that everything is nice and sharp when I go to poke out those corners. And I'm going to use a knitting needle or a chopstick, or just something that I can use to just get into those corners and make it look nice and perfectly square. And then I'm just going to give it a quick press. And just so you know, it is a PD day, so if you hear my children in the background, that is why. Okay, and then from here, we're going to do a top stitch, but we're only going to do a top stitch at the top of this piece, which if you have a directional fabric like me, then you'll know where the top piece is, but just keep that in mind if you don't have a directional fabric. And I'm just going to bump my machine up to a 3 stitch length. I always like to do my top stitching with a longer stitch length, and then I usually like to stick with a 2.5 for everything else. So as you can see, this is that other panel that I made with the zipper pouch. So I will have the measurements for the zipper and the fabric for the inside of the zipper pouch over at the PDF, but if you want to make that yourself, you will have to reference that video, which, like I said, is in the information icon. So I'm using the other lining piece to place my slip pockets. And these slip pockets will be used to house my cell phone, maybe some pens, it really depends on what you want to do. So I'm just going to measure that about 7 inches down. So that ruler is 6.5 inches. So I'm just going to put it down about 7 inches, and that's just so that I have some room to put pens. So you can just measure out what size pockets you want. So I'm just going to measure my cell phone. It's about 4 inches wide. And then if you have specific things that you would like to store in there and keep safe, then you can just, measure those accordingly. So I just made a few little spots for pens, and maybe if there's anything larger, I'm not sure. Who knows? But if you are making it for something like diapers or, notebooks, you can make this pocket as big as you want, or make these little sections as big or as small as you want. So you can really customize this part, and you can take this slip pocket and make it larger if you want to, just cut a bigger rectangle and make it a really big slip pocket. So you can really customize this backpack. It's so super easy to do. So now I'm just going to do a top stitch to secure the pocket onto my lining piece. And as you can see, I had that top stitch at the top. So now when we do the top stitch all the way around the whole slip pocket, then it looks like it's all been top stitched at the same time, even though we did that step earlier. Just makes it look a little bit more professional, especially if you plan on giving this as a gift or selling them. So then I'm going to just do the top stitching along the guidelines that I made for each of my little individual pockets, and make sure you back stitch at the top of the pocket just to make sure you secure that quite well, because there will be stress on that from inserting your items. So now we're going to work on my little slip pocket on the front of my bag. Now I am using a piece of vinyl for this, so I'm only making it one layer, but I will have the measurements if you plan on using fabric. So you're basically going to take the measurement that this pouch is, which I think is about like 6 inches by 6 inch, and I would make it 6 inches by 12 inches and then fold it in half, and then we'll do a top stitch at the fold, which is what I'm doing here. So I just folded this down a 1/2 inch because I don't want to use that much vinyl. It would just be too bulky in the end. So if you're using fabric, that's what we're doing. So now I'm going to make my straps, which this took forever because I'm making it myself. Like I said, if you want to go get webbing, I definitely recommend. You can also buy strapping, but if you want some more tips on strapping, I do have a dedicated video tutorial on strapping, which I will also link in the information icon. It definitely will help you if you've never made strapping. Of course, these are going to be amazing straps though, because it is made out of that waterproof canvas. It's going to be super strong and durable, way more stronger than webbing. But if you don't want to sit down and spend the 3 hours to make all the strapping, I would definitely recommend taking a shortcut, which is what I will be doing the next time I make this bag. And I ordered a ton of it off of eBay last night. But anyways, so all I'm going to do is fold in the sides by 1/2 inch, and then I fold it in half, and then I do a top stitch on either side so that I can create my straps. There will be, of course, the list on all the cut pieces you will need, so you can make a ton of strapping and then just cut the pieces you need off. So now we're going to work on the front panel of our backpack. So I did mark the center of the front panel, and then I marked the center of my little vinyl pocket there, and then I just made sure that that was lined up with the marking on the front panel piece. I'm going to take some strapping. I think this is 7.5 inches long, maybe 8, and I'm going to place my first piece of hardware, which are going to be these O-rings. Now of course you can use whatever hardware you want, D-rings, rectangle rings, whatever you want. This is your aesthetic. So I'm using a silver. You can use rose gold or rainbow they have these days. Like, there's just so many choices, and I hope one day I can open up a little shop for you guys so you can get them off of me, but I'm having some confidence issues in that department. So I'm just taking those strappings and I folded it over my O-rings about 1 inch, and then I lay them over top the sides of the pocket, and then made sure that everything was centered about 3 inches in from both sides. I'm just going to sew up the strapping across and then down the strapping to secure it into place, and then that will also secure that vinyl pocket in place. So as you can see, I folded it down over the O-ring, and as I go up my strapping, I'm going to catch the other side of it to secure that into place, and then that O-ring won't move and will go across. And I definitely recommend using matching thread so you can hide any mistakes and no one will see your inconsistencies, especially if you are not great at doing straight lines. But this thread was actually bang on, like you can't even see it, so I'm pretty excited about that. But it was an older thread, so it kept breaking, so it was a trade-off, I guess. But I definitely need to go invest in some more colors, I think, in high quality threads. So I am also going to talk about my needle. I am using a leather needle with my machine. It's not an industrial machine, so I want to have something more robust to be able to get through the layers of vinyl. But if you are using a cotton or if you're using a canvas, you might not have that issue. It's just with these layers of fabric that I'm using, it was a little tough to get through with a regular needle. So I definitely had to get that leather needle out. So now I'm going to take the back of my backpack panel piece and we're going to find the center. Again, this is going to be the top part of it. And then I measured about 4.5 inches down. And now we're going to place our backpack straps. So this little loop here is of course your handle. So you can reference your PDF for the handle measurement. And we're going to just put that in a centered position. And you're going to have the straps measure about 3 inches apart. And I'm just going to pin those into place. We're going to take our pieces that will be for our swivel clasps. So I'm using a 1-inch swivel clasp, and that 1 inch is the spot where we're going to put our strap. You're going to take the strap for your swivel clasp. We're going to fold it in half, place the swivel clasp on it, and then we will place that strap directly beside the little handle, and we're going to do that on the opposite side. Now of course you can choose any swivel clasp. This is a 1-inch swivel clasp because all of my strapping is 1 inch. So if you are changing the size of your hardware, then you'll need a either larger or smaller strapping. So now I'm going to take the long pieces of strapping, which are the main straps for your shoulders, and we're going to place those align with the swivel clasp strap. Now if I was smart and if I did this again, I would probably make this all one piece and then just fold it over at the top with the swivel clasp and not have a break in it. But hindsight's 20/20, maybe next time. But for here, we're going to be covering this up with another piece of strapping. Now if you have the webbing, you can just take that, lay that on top, and then do a top stitch on the top and bottom to secure that across all of the strapping. But like I said, I'm going to be making my own strapping, so instead of having too many seams, I'm just going to take a piece of my strapping that I haven't made into a strap yet, and then lay that on top with the right side down, sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance across, which will of course secure all of the top straps into place. And then I'll fold it over, tuck in the raw edge, and then we'll do a top stitch on both sides again. This step would maybe add a little bit more security to your bag handle. So if you are making your own straps, I would definitely recommend doing it this way. But if you really are that concerned about the security of your handle, using a matching thread and then just doing a few seams over top of it will definitely help to make sure that those strappings are nice and strong, especially the handle. The other part is more decorative, so you don't really need to worry about it as much, but the handle, I would definitely reinforce those stitches. So I'm just doing a top stitch right across. As you saw, I did fold it under a 1/2 inch, and then I'm just going to do that at the top of it. And then it just looks like a piece of strapping that I sewn on also. So it's just a different way of doing it. And then I'm going to do a quick stitch right underneath my swivel clasps on both of the swivel clasp strappings. And that's just to keep it into place so it doesn't slip down it and get in the way of things. So it's just to hold it there. So that is everything for the outside main panels. So now we can attach the bottom of the backpack, which I'm using another piece of that vinyl. So I am going to take the one side of the backpack and then with right sides together place the bottom of my backpack on top, and I'm just going to line up the bottom. And now that we attach this piece, that will finish off the bottom of that little slip pocket piece. So now it's not a bottomless slip pocket anymore. I'm just going to show you all in one go how we attach everything, and then I'll sew it all at one time. So I just folded that vinyl piece over, and I'm going to place the other side of the backpack and line up those raw edges and then pin those into place also. So I am going to be working with a 1/2 inch seam allowance for these seams also. And then after we're done sewing those seams, then we're going to open it up and we'll do a top stitch. And I'm going to do my top stitch on top of my bottom of the bag piece, so on my vinyl. So I am doing that 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way down. So I did end up switching back over to my white thread because I wanted to have the top stitching be a visual interest thing. So if you don't want to see the top stitching, then of course you could do a matching thread. But here is what we're going to do. Wherever you want to do your top stitching, we're going to fold the seam to that side, and that's just going to kind of pin it down. So I folded my seam towards the bottom of the bag, which is the vinyl part, and then I'll do that top stitch about 1/8 of an inch away, and then that will secure it down on the inside as well as make a decorative touch on the outside. So I did those exact same steps for the other side to make a very large, long outer panel. So now we're going to attach our little rectangle links. So of course you can use D-rings or whatever you have on hand, but these are the ones that I had in my stash. I'm going to take 2-inch pieces of strapping and I'll just wrap those around my little rectangles here. And we're going to place these, and this will be for the bottom of your backpack straps. So kind of where, you know, the smaller your back is. So that's where they'll kind of loop in and then go back up. So here's the back of my bag. And as you can see, we have that beautiful top stitching on the bottom of the bag. Looks so good. We're going to take those pieces and we're going to place those on top of the bottom of the bag piece. So just making sure that our little rectangle or D-rings or whatever you're using are on the inside, and we're lining up all of the raw edges. Now from here, I wasn't really sure if that was okay to just leave them like square like this, so I just chose to kind of angle them up, but I don't think it really mattered in the end. So it might look more aesthetically pleasing, but either way, if you wanted to do it straight like I did it before or angle them up like this, it's totally up to you. From here, I'm just going to do a tacking stitch, and I'm just going to do a few passes just to keep these into place for when I go to actually assemble the entire bag, just so that they don't shift around or move, or God forbid I just lose them and then I forget about them, which is something that I could totally do. So now I'm going to place my adjustable slider. You can get plastic ones like these or metal ones. You can of course go over to the dollar store and raid the dog collar aisle if you're looking for some cheap hardware quickly, because they can be a little expensive over at the sewing store. So just keep that. That's a little pro tip that I like to use. That's where I got some swivel clasps too for the leashes. So I'm just going to place the strapping through my little adjustable slider in and out, and then I go through the bottom little rectangle piece there, and then I'm going to go back through the adjustable slider on the opposite side. And so you have to kind of, you basically need to see what I'm doing to understand, because it's very hard to it's just hard to explain. If you ever checked out my fanny pack tutorial, I do a really good explanation on how to make your adjustable sliders, so you can get a way closer look if you want to check out that video, which I'll have again in the information icon. So now I'm just going to do that same thing for the other side. You could wait till the end of your bag assembly to do this. So you don't have to do it at this step if you don't want to. If you want to just make your whole bag and then secure your straps into place, you can totally do that. I just chose to do it now, which, you know, it's just whatever you want to do. So now I'm just going to tack it into place. I'm just doing a few passes here, but I would definitely recommend maybe doing a little rectangle with an X in it, you know, just to make sure that it's nice and secure. It's harder for me to do it because I had my camera and I had such a large backpack pieces kind of flying everywhere. So hopefully you get that idea and you can do a better job than I did depicting in the video, which I did a better job off camera, I assure you. So now I'm going to take those little strappings here. I'm just going to pin those out of place because now we're going to install the top zipper, which is where it all comes together. All of the outer elements are now prepared, and now we're just going to be making a regular zipper pouch. So if you know how to make one of those, then this is going to be super easy from here. So I took the back of the backpack and then I placed my zipper with a zipper pull towards it. And then I put the zipper pocket lining piece on top, making sure that all of your right sides are together. And of course, if your fabric is directional, that is going the right way and you're not accidentally installing it upside down, which is not something I've ever done before. So I did switch over to a zipper foot to do this part. If you're new to zipper feet, I will have, of course, my zipper foot little demonstration in the top right hand corner of this video. And then after that, I flipped it and I'm going to do my top stitch, making sure you're pulling the lining nice and tight and the outer fabric nice and tight so that we can get it you know, as nice as possible. It is important to do top stitching, especially when your lining is cotton, because cotton likes to get caught in zippers. So we want to always try to avoid that. So now we're going to take the outer panel of our bag, the big gigantic piece. We're going to flip that with the right sides together and line up that raw edge with the other side of our zipper. If you're curious as to what zipper I'm using, I am using zipper by the yard and it is a size 5. So it's a nice big hardy zipper, which I love. And then again, I'm just putting that last piece of lining on top and lining that all up, and we'll again install this piece. And then we flip it right sides out to do the top stitching. If you don't have a zipper by the yard, I would definitely recommend using a longer zipper so that when you go to do the top stitching, if you have a closed zipper, it will just be easier to be able to push that under the machine. Luckily for this type of zipper, and because it's so large, I can take the zipper pull off completely and then just feed it through the machine and then just place that zipper pull right on. And with those big zippers, it's so much easier to get zipper pulls on, because if you ever, you know, lost one off of a size 3, which is, you know, your standard zipper, it is not fun trying to get it back on. That's for So I hope you're still with me. I know this video is getting so long, but the finish line is coming. It is coming. So we're just going to take the whole thing and flip it all inside out. We're going to line up the right sides of our lining together and then line up, of course, the outer fabric, which is obviously, it's still together because of the bottom of the bag, but you want to make sure that the bottom of the bag seam is lined up. So right here, this is where you want it to be lined up nicely, just so that it looks nice and, you know, seamless kind of thing when your bag is completely finished. And we'll just line it all up, making sure we tuck in all those straps, and we will make sure that our zipper is lined up also, especially the open end. And then we're going to sew all the way around it, of course not the part that is folded, but all 3 sides, going over our zipper. And we will leave a 4 or 5 inch gap depending on the materials you're using. Because I'm using more stiffer materials, I'm going to leave a bigger hole just so that I can help with birthing the bag, but you know, just gauge on how big you need to leave that opening. And then I'll just leave that at some point within the lining of the bag. So I'm going to do my 1/2 inch seam allowance, and that's just to make sure that I catch everything and that nothing is sticking out. When you're going up the one side, make sure that your little hardware is out of the way and you don't accidentally smash your needle on it. It shouldn't be in the way, but just in case, just make sure that you can feel it underneath the fabric and you're completely avoiding it. And we're going to go all the way up the one side. And with the bigger zippers, you can get stuck on it with your needle. So just, go slow over your zippers. Either way, whatever size zipper you have, you definitely want to go a little bit slower, just so that you can make sure that you don't, depending on your machine. My machine will error out, but my old machine would just smash a needle right through a zipper, and then the pieces would go flying, and I would always be like, why am I not wearing safety glasses? So after that, we're going to box our corners. So we're going to box the bottom of the lining as well as the outer, of course. We're going to do it at 1.5 inches by 1.5, and we're going to measure starting at the little seams there. Of course, there's only one seam for this side, so I just measured from the one seam, and it's okay if the lining is a little bit shorter. That will actually help in the end anyways, because you don't want it to be the exact same size, because it might not fit nicely and it might end up bunching up at the bottom. So just giving you that little extra 1/4 inch will help in the long. And then we're just going to cut all of those little notches out, and then we will open up those little notches, and we're going to line up the bottom seam with the side seam, and then just try to line it up as best as you can, making the raw edges all lined up. It might be a little bit more difficult if you're using a vinyl or a cork, but with the cotton, it seems like it's way easier to tell the fabric what to do. You'll see when I go to put it in my machine what I'm talking about when it comes to the vinyl. So, and then I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we'll just sew right across those notches, and then that will box the bottom of our backpack, which, of course, if you wanted to make this a little bit deeper, you could do that, but it would adjust the, the entire measurement of your bag. But if you wanted to have it, make these little notches 2 inches to have it a little bit wider, depending on what you're putting in there. Maybe, a ton of books, a lot of baby supplies. You can really just figure out, what do I want to put in here, and then just make it accordingly. So with the vinyl, like I was saying, it didn't really want to do what I wanted to do. So what I like to do is stick it in the machine, I'll get it started, backstitch a bunch, and then once it's secured in the machine, then I'm able to kind of just push it all into place and line up everything. That seems to be the best thing for me. I've made multiple box bottoms with vinyl, and when I try to pre-clip it or pre-pin it, it never wants to go for me. So, and if you are using a stronger material like this, I would definitely go backstitch over it, maybe even go across this a few times just to make sure those stitches are nice and tight. If not, when you do go to flip your bag, you might end up seeing your stitches, especially if you are using a different color stitch. You're not matching your thread with your bag. So just, really just do it a bunch. It's just better in the end. So now we're gonna flip it. Oh my goodness, we've done all 4 corners, and now we get to finally birth our bag and see if it turned out. I'm so super excited. I'm already trying to think about what other materials. I want to get more of this waterproof material. It's so great, and because this is a fold over backpack, that fold over will prevent any rain from getting in there. So it is basically a watertight backpack, which is absolutely amazing. So definitely check out waterproof canvas if you haven't, and it holds such a great shape also. I showed this to my husband, and he just looked at it, but then I said, I made this, and he's like, you made this? Like, he was actually really surprised. It looks really good. I'm so surprised. So if you do try this bag, I hope that you share it over on the social media. All the sites, Facebook, Instagram is all linked below. I would love to see different color combinations, different fabrics. If you make it with webbing, I would love to see that. So definitely share with us. Everybody would love to see it. And of course, after you're done flipping it through, you can just take your lining out, and we're just going to do a top stitch to close up that hole that we left in the lining. So once you're done that, you can just put your lining back in and then load it up. So this is actually a great size for tablets, a smaller laptop. My laptop is about a 17-inch, so it just barely fit. But definitely maybe a 15-inch laptop, and just so many other things. So use your imagination. And because it's got waterproof elements, maybe it would be a great little beach bag. So I hope you give this a try, and I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. And if you're still with me after this long, kudos to you. And let me know in the comments if you stuck around for the whole thing. I'm definitely starting to lose my voice. I can tell you that right now. So, of course, don't forget to subscribe, like that, share it with all your friends, Pinterest, all the things, all those little cute pictures over for Pinterest are at the blog post. So definitely it helps my channel, it helps fund the projects so I can do more, and as you can see, my voice is going. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next tutorial. Bye guys.